Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are strapping in to take on, well, one of the most critical and complex challenges facing global commerce right now: how to build a supply chain that's genuinely resilient.
And for this deep dive, we've gone through a pretty significant stack of sources. We're talking chief economist reports, logistics tech studies, academic research on everything from AI to sustainability.
Our mission today is really to give you a quick but thorough understanding of the landscape for 2025. We're trying to figure out how these new tools, AI, IoT, blockchain, how they actually stack up against these massive global disruptions we're seeing.
It really is about digging into the strategic trade-offs. The cost of building this resilience versus the cost of, well, not having it when a crisis hits. And we've found some key data points that should, frankly, change how you think about planning your operations.
Okay, let's start with a core definition, because the idea of supply chain resilience, SCR, has changed so much recently.
It really has. It's not just about having a backup anymore. SCR is this dynamic ability to anticipate shocks before they happen, adapt really quickly when they do, and then recover without, crippling your entire operation.
So it's moving from a passive, hope for the best kind of mindset.
Exactly. To an active, we will reconfigure instantly capability. It's a fundamental shift.
And if you look back, there have always been different ways to achieve this. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Think about Toyota. That's the classic case study, right? After the huge earthquake and tsunami in Japan back in
A
2011,
devastating event.
absolutely. A lot of manufacturers went under or, faced years of recovery, but Toyota, they'd been preparing for decades. They had inventory buffers for specific components. They'd already mapped out alternative sourcing.
And they had those deep supplier relationships.
That was the key. Their Tier 1 and Tier 2 suppliers worked so closely with them. That combination of planning and relationships let them recover production in months, not years. It was incredible.
So their model was robustness, building stronger safety nets.
That's one way to do it. The other model is agility. And for that, you look at a company like Zara.
The fast fashion giant.
Right. Their resilience is built on pure speed and vertical integration. They control almost everything, from design to distribution. This means their lead times are incredibly short, so they carry very little inventory.
Which cuts down on risk and cost.
Hugely. And it means they can react almost in real time to a shift in demand or a problem with the supplier. So you have two paths: robustness, like Toyota, or extreme speed, like Zara.
Okay, so now let's talk about the scale of the monster these systems are up against in 2025. Because the disruption landscape,
Yeah.
it's not just one thing, it's continuous and it's compounding.
The word unprecedented gets thrown around a lot, but I think here it genuinely applies. You've got this confluence of risks. Start with geopolitics and the economic instability that comes with it.
The global outlook is not great.
It's grim. We're seeing numbers like, 56% of leading chief economists are expecting weaker global conditions in 2025. Only about 17% expect things to get better. That kind of pessimism, it changes everything.
And it's not some abstract threat. It translates directly into operational costs.
Instantly. You have the ongoing instability from the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the rerouting around the Red Sea. But look at tariffs. Just tariffs alone. When the U.S. ramped up tariffs on China.
Back in 2018.
Right. The data from Zenita showed that spot rates on that key China to U.S. West Coast route, they spiked over 70%.
70%. That's a number that can just wipe out your margins.
For many firms, it's the difference between being in business and not. A shock like that forces you to be agile in how you procure. You can't be locked into a single long-term contract anymore.
It's driving that whole diversification trend.
It has to. Shorter contracts, more suppliers in different regions. Relying on a single source, even if it's cheaper today, is now seen as this massive liability.
So you have the geopolitical and economic instability as risk A. Then we have risk B, which is the climate crisis. And it's no longer a future problem. It's an active logistical threat right now.
It's moved from being a long-term concern to a dominant short-term operational risk. The World Economic Forum's 2025 Global Risk Report. It's stark.
What did it say?
It ranked extreme weather as the second most likely risk to cause a material crisis in the short term. And then when they looked out over the next decade, The top four most severe risks were all environmental.
The entire top four.
The entire top four. That tells you everything you need to know about the stability of the planet we're operating on.
And we're seeing this play out in real time, degrading critical choke points in the network.
Oh, absolutely. Look at the Panama Canal. The droughts there are forcing massive weight restrictions, causing slowdowns. It's a huge problem.
Yeah.
Or even more suddenly, that flash flooding in Dubai in 2024.
It literally submerged an international airport.
Exactly. It caused chaos for air freight. These aren't just freak one-off events anymore. Planners had to start modeling these things as a routine occurrence, not some black swan exception.
So given all this volatility, companies are scrambling to build in safety measures. But that leads us right to the central conflict, doesn't it? The cost of resilience.
That is the trade-off. Resilience means you have to sacrifice some of that hyper-efficiency, that just-in-time model that was all about low cost. The surveys are clear. 81% of leaders are planning to increase dual sourcing. 80% plan to boost inventory.
And those strategies are not cheap.
Not at all. Dual sourcing means you lose your volume discount. More inventory means higher holding costs, warehousing, insurance, all of it. So this push for stability, it's likely going to raise input prices and, could contribute to inflation in the short term.
It's like paying for an insurance policy.
It's exactly that. You're paying a premium you hope you never have to use, but all the forecasts for 2025 are saying you absolutely must pay it.
And what's really frightening here is the multiplier effect. It's not just the first hit, it's the dominoes that fall afterwards.
We call that the amplification effect. Research into past shocks shows that only about half of the total financial damage comes from the initial incident itself.
Only half. So where does the other half come from?
From propagation and amplification through the network. Imagine a Tier 2 supplier of, say, a very specific microchip has a fire.
Okay.
Their customers, the Tier 1 firms, suddenly start scrambling for that chip. That panic inflates prices, creates delays, and disrupts production for dozens of companies downstream. The shockwave just keeps spreading out.
And the more specialized the part, the worse it gets.
Exactly. If it's a custom-made component, finding a substitute is almost impossible. That's how a small, localized incident can spiral into a massive systemic failure.
This is where it gets really interesting. We have this huge, complex problem that traditional methods like inventory can only partially fix, and at a really high cost. So the modern answer, the counter-argument, is technology.
Right. The idea is to use technology to shift from being reactive to being proactive or even predictive.
But the big question we have to tackle is whether these technologies are actually mature enough to handle the sheer volatility of 2025, or if they're just adding another layer of complexity to an already tangled mess.
Let's get into it.
Let's start with the big one, AI and machine learning. And if you look at it from a research perspective, from the PhD side of things, the numbers are pointing to massive adoption and really profound benefits.
AI is definitely being positioned as the sort of central nervous system for the future supply chain.
The data completely backs that up. We're seeing reports from logistics tech providers in 2025 that show AI is now tied for the #1 solution they offer. It's at 71%.
And that's up from, what, 50% just the year before?
Exactly, a huge leap. And the expectation is that AI will make supply chains something like 45% more effective in getting products delivered on time and without errors.
A 45% improvement. That's not just an incremental change, that's transformative.
It really is. And the tip of the spear here is AI-driven forecasting. The claim is that AI models can analyze so many more variables, weather, social media, geopolitical news, and they can cut forecasting errors by up to 50%.
50%. That kind of precision helps you walk that tightrope between having enough safety stock and not having too much, which costs a fortune to hold. It's intelligence over brute force inventory.
Right. And beyond the software, AI is driving physical automation in warehouses. We're seeing real numbers here, 25% productivity gains, 10 to 20% better space utilization from robotics.
And companies are being smart about where they apply it.
They are. 60% of the focus is on inventory optimization, which directly tackles that resilience cost problem. And 58% is on improving e-commerce, which is where the complexity is just off the charts.
You need AI just to keep up with the volume and speed of e-commerce.
And nothing shows the ambition of this predictive approach better than digital twin technology. This is more than just a model. It's like simulating the failure.
It's the ultimate sandbox. You create a virtual replica of your entire network, and then you can stress test it.
The market for this is exploding. It's expected to hit up to $150 billion by 2032, and the companies using them are already reporting a 30% drop in disruptions and a 15% reduction in logistics costs.
That 30% number is the key. That translates directly to better resilience. When a shock hits, you can run simulations in the twin instantly to see which response is the cheapest and fastest.
Let's make this concrete. Can you give us a real-world example of how a digital twin is being used for strategic planning?
Yeah, the Raidburger Group Brewery in Germany is a great one. They manage this huge, sprawling distribution network for almost 60 different beer brands. It's incredibly complex.
And before the twin, their planning was probably very reactive.
Very reactive, based on traditional scheduling systems that couldn't really see the downstream impact of a delay. Now, with the Siemens supply chain suite, they have a digital twin of their whole operation.
So what does that let them do?
It lets them simulate everything. If a production line has a problem, they can see in the twin exactly how that will affect truck schedules, driver hours, and customer delivery times before it actually happens.
It turns planning from a static schedule into a dynamic simulation.
That's the perfect way to put it. The manager there said it gives them the big picture of their entire supply chain. So they're not just reacting to daily problems, they're simulating future strategies, like opening a new warehouse to see how it impacts costs and stability.
Okay, the potential of the technology is undeniable. But now I have to put on the critical operator hat. Because the dream of scaling this across the globe runs smack into the wall of operational reality. There's a huge implementation gap.
This is the absolute crux of the issue. The hype is there, but the foundations are, let's say, shaky. We're seeing three major barriers holding things back.
What's the first one?
Talent scarcity. 44% of companies say they just can't find people with the right skills, people who understand both logistics and data science.
The second is probably budget.
You got it. 43% face budget constraints. And the third, which might be the most fundamental problem for AI, is data quality.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Precisely. A critical 39% of companies are struggling with poor data. Your AI is only as good as the data you feed it, and if the data is a mess, that promise of a 50% error reduction, it just evaporates.
And the logistics world is, in many ways, still stuck in the past when it comes to data.
Oh, absolutely. One CMO described the field as being stuck in a digital process time warp. So much of the industry still runs on manually processing unstructured data. Emails, PDFs, spreadsheets.
Which AI can theoretically interpret, but it's a huge lift.
It's a game changer if you can do it, but it requires this massive, expensive, and culturally difficult shift in how every single partner in your chain captures and manages their data.
Okay, so let's say you do all that. You solve the data problem. You integrate AI and IoT across your whole network. What have you just done to your risk profile? You created a giant new attack surface?
That is the terrifying part that I think is being completely overlooked in the rush to adopt AI, the cybersecurity warning. We saw a preview of this in 2024 with the CrowdStrike outage.
Which wasn't even a malicious attack, right? It was a technical glitch.
It was a glitch, and it still cost Fortune 500 companies over $5 billion in downtime and losses. That one event shows you the terrifying fragility of our interconnected systems.
$5 billion.
Yeah.
And if that had been a targeted cyber attack on a logistics platform, the amplification effect would have been catastrophic.
It would have been chaos. And when you integrate AI and IoT sensors, you're creating thousands of new potential entry points for attackers. And the data shows we are just not prepared for this.
What's that alarming stat again?
It's staggering. Only 13% of businesses review the cybersecurity risks of their immediate suppliers, and it gets worse. Only 7% review their wider supply chain, their Tier 2 suppliers and beyond.
That is a shocking paradox.
Yeah.
We're spending billions on digital twins to model future risk, but we're ignoring the most obvious basic risk right in front of us.
Exactly. You can have the best firewall in the world, but if that small Tier 2 supplier making a custom part for you gets breached, their breach is now your entire supply chain's breach. Your expensive AI becomes useless.
So resilience has to start with security.
It has to. AI without a network-wide security protocol isn't a resilience tool. It's an open invitation for a systemic disruption. You need cloud-native platforms, zero-trust models across all partners, not just in your own four walls.
Okay, let's pivot from AI's predictive power to its partner technology, blockchain. If AI offers prediction, blockchain seems to offer something more fundamental. Verifiable truth.
Trust. As supply chains get more global and diversified, you need a way to trust partners you've never met. You need a mechanism to verify transactions and where a product came from.
And blockchain does that with transparency, traceability, and this key feature, immutability. Records can't be changed. We can actually map this out using a causal loop diagram.
Right, showing how these systems either reinforce themselves in a good way or get stuck in a bad way.
Let's start with a good one. The virtuous cycle of trust, which we can call R1. It starts with implementing blockchain. This creates transparency and immutability.
Which then builds trust among all the different stakeholders.
Exactly. And that trust leads to better collaboration and information sharing. And when everyone is sharing good data, you get better visibility and responsiveness across the whole network.
Which strengthens your overall resilience. And that success encourages more partners to join, which builds more trust, and the loop just keeps reinforcing itself.
It's a self-improving system. And we're seeing this in the real world, especially in the food industry.
Where traceability is everything.
Right. Walmart uses blockchain to track perishable goods. You can scan a QR code and see a product's entire journey from farm to shelf in seconds. It used to take weeks to do that kind of trace.
And the outcome is huge. You can recall contaminated products faster, which improves safety and reduces waste. It's a massive win.
And this isn't just one company doing it alone.
No, that's the network effect. Look at the IBM Food Trust. You have huge players like Nestle and Unilever collaborating on one platform for end-to-end traceability.
So that's the promise, the virtuous R1 loop. But now we have to talk about the counterforce, the thing that's slowing it all down. The vicious cycle of governance, or B1.
This is the balancing loop. It explains why adoption isn't everywhere yet. It starts with the fear. When you ask a partner to join a blockchain, they immediately worry about data governance, regulations, and cyber threats.
And considering only 13% of firms are auditing security, those are very real fears.
They're completely legitimate. And that fear creates reluctance or even resistance from partners. This, of course, limits adoption of the network.
And with limited adoption, you don't get the full transparency you were promised.
Which just increases the vulnerabilities and reinforces the initial fears about security. So the next partner you ask is even more hesitant to join. The whole system gets stuck.
This tension between the high-tech promise and the real-world hurdles, it brings us to the bigger, often overlooked issue of sustainability. Tech is so focused on economic efficiency, but the other two pillars of the triple bottom line, environmental and social, are often lagging.
And you see this tension so clearly in cold chain logistics or CCL. This is the network for sensitive goods like vaccines and fresh food. It's vital, but it's also incredibly fragile and energy intensive.
So it's a part of the supply chain that has to be resilient to the climate crisis, but at the same time, it's a huge contributor to the climate crisis.
Exactly. It uses a massive amount of energy for refrigeration, and the refrigerants themselves are potent greenhouse gases. So we desperately need sustainability innovation here, but we're seeing this shocking gap in focus.
What does the data say about that gap?
It's stark. A big review of all the research in this area found that only about 21.6% of it even incorporates low-carbon technologies.
Only 21.6%.
Right. Things like IoT-enabled smart refrigeration or eco-routing to save fuel. The vast majority of the focus is still just on operational risk and cutting costs, not the long-term environmental impact.
And that narrow focus is reflected in the overall emissions numbers for logistics, which are going in the wrong direction.
That's the emissions reality check. Despite all the ESG talk, total emissions from container shipping were up 13.8% in the first 10 months of 2024.
So on track for a new record high.
A new all-time record. The industry is effectively talking green while the core activity is getting dirtier.
Which presents this deep strategic conflict. Sustainability innovation is essential for long-term resilience, but it requires this massive upfront investment.
It's the ultimate trade-off. Green initiatives like electric fleets or low-carbon infrastructure, they can temporarily depress your economic returns. But they are absolutely necessary now to align with long-term stability, regulations like the EU's emissions trading system, and, frankly, public expectation.
So we've looked at the technologies in isolation. Let's bring it all together and talk about smart ports. This is the case study where you see AI, IoT, and blockchain all layered together to create maximum resilience.
Smart ports are really the living laboratories for this future. They're being squeezed by two pressures: the need for efficiency to handle more trade, and the need for resilience to handle all the shocks we've talked about.
And the money flowing into this space is incredible. The market was about $25 billion in 2023, and it's projected to hit $75 billion by 2030. That's an 18% annual growth rate.
And the foundation of this whole transformation is the Internet of Things, IoT.
Absolutely. It's the lead technology. We're talking about sensors, cameras, RFID tags everywhere, making every crane, every container intelligent. This creates a massive stream of real-time data.
And that data stream is the fuel for the AI engine.
Exactly. AI takes that raw IoT data and uses it for predictive analytics. It optimizes traffic flow, tells the automated guided vehicles where to go, and even predicts when a crane needs maintenance before it breaks down.
And you have the physical automation as well.
Right. The AGVs and robotic systems that reduce labor costs and human error and just speed everything up.
So where does blockchain fit into this automated physical world?
Blockchain manages the information flow and the trust. It creates that immutable digital record for every single shipment, which simplifies customs, reduces fraud, and gets rid of the mountain of paperwork that slows everything down.
And none of this can happen without incredible connectivity.
This is where private 5G networks come in. They provide the high speed and ultra-low latency you need for autonomous systems. A robotic vehicle needs instantaneous communication with the central AI. 5G delivers that.
And tying this all together, once again, is the digital twin.
It's central to the whole concept. Port operators can create a virtual model of the entire port and simulate anything, a new berthing strategy, a storm, anything, to optimize efficiency without risking the real-world operation.
So on paper, the smart port sounds like the perfect resilient solution. But just like with AI in general, there are huge practical challenges.
What's the main thing holding back their expansion?
Money. It comes down to investment and risk. The upfront cost to build a smart port is extraordinarily high. Retrofitting for 5G, buying the robots, building the twin. It's billions of dollars. Only the biggest, highest volume ports can really afford that.
And what about the tech itself? If a port buys systems from different vendors, do they all play nicely together?
Not necessarily. That lack of interoperability is a huge challenge. The market is dominated by a few big players, IBM, ABB, Siemens, and if their systems don't speak the same language, your data gets siloed and the whole concept breaks down.
And we have to come back to cybersecurity. A port is critical national infrastructure.
Yeah.
The vulnerability is amplified massively here.
It's the ultimate high-value target. A breach in a smart port could halt international trade and cause billions in losses overnight. So building in robust security from the ground up is this huge non-negotiable hurdle. The resilience of the port depends entirely on the security of all its integrated parts.
So if we pull back and synthesize all of this, the core lesson for 2025 seems to be this inescapable duality.
It is. Companies are being forced to balance the old imperative for efficiency and low cost with this new existential need for resilience and adaptability. The winners are going to be the ones who can innovate in that middle space.
So resilience is no longer just a buffer, like extra inventory. It's an active capability that needs constant innovation.
Precisely. And that's forcing a big transformation internally, especially in procurement. Procurement is no longer just about getting the lowest price. It's becoming a strategic function that has to manage risk, ensure business continuity, and even support sustainability goals.
Which brings us back to the talent gap. We said 44% of companies can't find the right people. What kind of person do you need for this new strategic role?
You need to build what are called T-shaped teams. You have to break down the silos that this kind of tech implementation often creates.
Explain that T-shaped metaphor.
The vertical bar of the T's is deep expertise in one area. Maybe it's contract negotiation or network modeling. But the horizontal bar is a broad knowledge of all the related areas. So your negotiator also needs to understand data visualization, basic cybersecurity, and carbon accounting.
So the goal is to have everyone speaking a bit of the same language to reduce those dependencies.
Exactly. It leads to faster, better decisions because everyone understands the bigger picture. But building these teams requires a serious investment in training and education to create these new cross-disciplinary skill sets.
It really puts the human factor right back at the center of this tech discussion. The tech AI, IoT, blockchain, it offers this incredible potential for near-perfect visibility. But as you warned, the whole system is only as strong as its weakest link.
And that weakest link, based on all the data we're seeing, is the simple failure to audit supplier security. The foundational layer just isn't there for most businesses.
It's a huge disconnect. We're spending billions on these sophisticated predictive tools to model complex risks, but we're ignoring the most basic entry-level risk of a supplier breach.
It's the great paradox. We're building these magnificent, fragile glass towers of visibility on top of foundations we haven't even bothered to check.
So after this entire deep dive, what's the one thing that stands out to you? Does the promise of predictive resilience truly outweigh the reality of the risk, especially when only 13% of businesses are auditing their suppliers' cyber risks? That 13% figure just haunts this whole conversation.
It forces every executive to ask a very hard question. Is my massive investment in new technology making me safer, or am I just optimizing my system for a more spectacular failure? The path to true resilience doesn't start with a new AI model. It starts with a security audit of your entire extended network.
We want to leave you with one final thought to take back to your own operations. Ask yourself this. Are the fundamental data quality and security protocols in my supply chain truly AI ready? Because if the data and governance aren't solid, the most advanced AI in the world is just giving you very confident, very fast garbage.
Think about that 13% number. And then think about the last time you checked your Tier 2 supplier's firewall. That is where resilience is really being decided today.
That is certainly something to mull over. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the resilient supply chain landscape of 2025.